The great hall of the Galactic Council sparkled with light reflecting off crystalline walls. Hundreds of alien representatives sat in curved rows, their bodies of all shapes and sizes. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few were made of energy, contained in special suits. They all fell silent as Ambassador Lyrax stepped onto the speaking platform. Lyrax was tall, with blue skin and 4 arms. He wore the gold and purple robes of the Zentari Imperium, the most powerful force in the galaxy. His voice boomed across the hall. "The Arcturians worry too much," he said with a wave of his upper right hand. "These humans are nothing special, just another primitive species taking their first steps into space." The Arcturian delegate, a small gray being with large black eyes, stood up quickly. "You are making a terrible mistake, Ambassador. Our research shows that humans have unique qualities that make them dangerous if threatened." "Dangerous?" Lyrax laughed, and many other delegates joined him. "They have only 5 colony worlds. Their ships are slow and weak. Their weapons are simple. What could they possibly do against the might of the Zentari fleet?" The Arcturian's voice was soft but clear. "It is not their technology that concerns us. It is their nature. They evolved on a death world, where survival was never guaranteed. They've fought countless wars against each other. They adapt faster than any species we've encountered, and most importantly, they never give up." "All species fight for survival," Lyrax said with a bored tone. "The Zentari have conquered 100 worlds. We know how to deal with resistance." "Not like this," the Arcturian insisted. "The Council should vote to establish peaceful contact only. Any aggressive action against humans could lead to disaster." Far away from this meeting, Admiral Victor Harrison looked out the window of his office on Earth's moon. The lights of Lunar City spread out below him, with the blue and white sphere of Earth hanging in the black sky. His office door slid open, as Commander Samantha Wright entered with a tablet in her hand. "The supply ships for Proxima Centauri have launched on schedule, Admiral," she said. "Governor Morgan reports the colony is growing faster than expected." Harrison nodded, his gray hair catching the light. "Good news. Any word from our deep space probes?" "Nothing unusual," Wright answered, "though there have been some strange energy readings at the edge of the system, probably just sensor ghosts." Neither of them knew these readings were actually Zentari scout ships watching and planning. The humans had no idea they were being discussed by powerful aliens, or that a decision about their fate was being made. Back in the council chamber, the vote was complete. The recommendation for peaceful contact passed, but it was only a recommendation. The Zentari were not required to follow it. Ambassador Lyrax left the chamber with a smirk on his face. 3 days later, Emperor Thraz sat on his throne on the Zentari homeworld. His skin was darker blue than Lyrax's, and 6 gold horns curved from his head. A hologram of Admiral Vexnar floated before him. "The fleet is ready, Your Greatness," Vexnar said with a bow. 10 battleships, 20 cruisers, and 50 destroyer-class vessels. More than enough to secure all 5 human colonies at once. "Good," Emperor Thraz said. "Begin with their newest colony at Proxima Centauri. Show them our power. Accept their surrender and add them to our empire. These humans will make useful servants once they learn their place." "What if they resist, Your Greatness?" The Emperor laughed. "Crush them quickly to set an example. But I doubt it will come to that. Most primitive species surrender when they see our fleet appear in their skies." On Proxima Centauri B, Governor Eliza Morgan walked through the main dome of Hope Colony. After 3 years, the settlement had grown from a few prefab shelters to a thriving community of 10,000 people. Engineers had begun the process of terraforming, and the first earth plants were growing in the experimental fields outside the domes. "The water recycling system is at 98% efficiency," said Alan Reeves, the colony's defense coordinator, as he walked beside her. "Dr. Cruz wants to expand the medical center to include a new research wing." Morgan nodded. "Approve it." "What about those energy spikes the satellites detected yesterday?" Reeves frowned. "Still no explanation. But I've put the defense systems on standby just in case Captain Powell has the Defiant running patrol sweeps." "You're always so careful, Alan." Morgan said with a small smile. That's my job, he replied. Though out here I admit it feels unnecessary sometimes. The peaceful scene was suddenly interrupted by an alarm. Morgan's wrist communicator lit up with an urgent message. Governor, this is Lieutenant Wade in the control center. Multiple unknown vessels just appeared in the system. They're huge. Morgan and Reeves ran to the nearest elevator and rode it up to the colony's control center at the top of the main dome. The room was filled with screens showing different views of space above the planet. On the largest screen, strange ships with curved, organic-looking hulls moved into orbit. They were unlike anything the humans had ever built. Are they responding to hails? Morgan asked as she entered the room. Yes, Governor, said Communications Officer Lisa Chen. They're transmitting now. The face that appeared on the screen wasn't human. It had blue skin, yellow eyes with vertical pupils and small horns above each ear. The alien spoke, its words translated by the computer. I am Grand Admiral Vexnar of the Zentari Imperium. Your planet and colony are now under our control. Surrender immediately and submit to Zentari rule or be destroyed. You have 24 hours to decide. The transmission cut off. The control room was silent for a moment before Reeves spoke. First contact and they're threatening us. What do we do, Governor? Morgan's eyes hardened as she looked at the alien ships on the screen. First, we contact Earth. Then we prepare. If these Zentari think humans will simply roll over and accept conquest, they're about to learn a harsh lesson. But their ships are enormous, said one of the controllers. We only have the Defiant and a few defense platforms. Size isn't everything, Morgan said. Alan, implement Defense Protocol Omega, and get me Captain Powell on the Defiant. We need to buy time for Earth to send help. As orders spread throughout the colony, people moved with surprising calm and purpose. Within an hour, civilian structures began to transform. Hidden defense systems emerged from buildings. Ordinary colonists reported to predetermined positions, many collecting weapons from sealed lockers that had been placed years ago for just such an emergency. In space, Captain Darius Powell received the message on the bridge of the Defiant. His ship was small compared to the Zentari vessels, but his crew was well trained. He studied the sensor readings of the alien fleet with a calculating eye. So they want us to surrender, he said quietly. They don't know much about humans, do they? His first officer, Lieutenant Carla Edwards, stood beside him. Your orders, Captain? Powell's lips curved in a grim smile. Let's show these aliens why they should have come in peace. Prepare the stealth probes. I want to know everything about their ships before we engage. As the Zentari fleet orbited confidently above, they had no idea what was coming. They had ignored the Council's warning about humans. Soon, they would understand their mistake. Back on the Zentari command ship, Admiral Vexnar watched the small, human colony with contempt. Such a primitive settlement. They'll surrender by morning. His second-in-command wasn't so sure. Admiral, our scouts report unusual activity. The humans appear to be preparing to fight. Impossible, Vexnar laughed. They have one small warship against our fleet. What could they possibly do? He was about to find out. The humans had no intention of surrendering, and the Zentari were about to face something they had never encountered before. Human ingenuity born from thousands of years of warfare, combined with the desperate courage of people protecting their home. The first battle between humans and aliens was about to begin, and it wouldn't go as the Zentari expected. The 24-hour deadline was counting down. Inside the main dome of Hope Colony, Governor Morgan stood at the center of a room that had transformed into a command center. Screens showed the positions of the Zentari ships above them. Other screens displayed the colony's defense readiness. All civilian shelters are secure, Alan Reeves reported. Every colonist with military training has been armed and placed in defensive positions. Morgan nodded. What about Dr. Cruz's project? She's ready, Reeves said with a small smile. The Zentari have no idea what's coming. In her lab, Dr. Olivia, Cruz worked quickly with her team. They had taken apart the colony's terraforming machines and rebuilt them into something new. The devices were meant to change a planet's atmosphere slowly over years. Now they were set to create a very different effect. Final checks complete, Cruz said as she closed a panel on the largest device. When these activate, they'll create an electromagnetic pulse that should disrupt their communications. It won't stop their ships, but it might confuse them long enough for the Defiant to strike. In space, Captain Powell watched the Zentari fleet from the bridge of the Defiant. His small ship was hiding behind one of Proxima Centauri B's moons, sensors carefully tracking the alien vessels. "Their shield configuration is unusual," said Lieutenant Edwards, studying her screen. "But there's a pattern to their energy output. I think I've found a weakness." Powell moved to her station and looked at the data. "Good work, Lieutenant. Their shields are strongest at the front but relatively weak at these junction points near the engines." He turned to his weapons officer. "Recalibrate our torpedoes to target these specific coordinates. We'll only get one chance at surprise." The Zentari command ship, Admiral Vexnar, was growing impatient. 18 hours have passed. The humans have not responded to our demands. "They appear to be moving people into underground shelters," reported a Zentari officer. "Perhaps they are preparing to surrender, or preparing to resist," said another officer nervously. "Our scouts report unusual energy readings from the colony." Vexnar dismissed this concern with a wave of his hand. "Ready the ground forces. When their deadline expires, we will land troops and show them the futility of resistance." The Admiral turned to look at the small human colony on the view screen. "Such primitive beings. The Emperor will be pleased when we add them to our collection of servant species." Back in the colony, all was ready. Governor Morgan addressed her people through the colony's communication system. "Citizens of Hope Colony, today we face an enemy who believes we will surrender rather than fight. They think that because we are far from Earth, because we are few against many, we will give up our freedom." She paused. "They are wrong." A cheer went up from the colonists gathered in shelters and defensive positions. Morgan continued. "Earth has been notified and help is coming. But we are not helpless. We will show these Zentari that humans do not surrender. We will show them why they should have listened to warnings about us." As the deadline approached, Zentari landing craft prepared to launch. Soldiers in blue armor checked their weapons. They had conquered many worlds, and this one seemed no different. "Launch the landing force," ordered Admiral Vexnar as the deadline expired. "Take control of their main settlement. Minimal casualties if they surrender immediately. If they resist, make examples of their leaders." 20 Zentari transport ships descended toward the colony. At the same moment, Dr. Cruz activated her modified terraforming equipment. A pulse of invisible energy spread out from the colony, washing over the Zentari ships. On the transports, screens went dark. Communication systems failed. Navigation systems showed false readings. Confusion spread through the Zentari forces. "What's happening?" demanded Vexnar as his own ship's systems flickered. "Report." "Some kind of interference," said a technician, frantically working at his station. "It's affecting our communications and sensors." At that moment, the Defiant emerged. From behind the moon engines at full power, the human ship was small compared to the Zentari vessels, but it moved with incredible speed and precision. Captain Powell had studied the Zentari ships carefully and knew exactly where to strike. "Fire torpedoes," Powell ordered calmly. "Target the shield junctions on the lead destroyer." The Defiant launched its weapons. The torpedoes flew straight toward the weak points in the Zentari shields. The aliens, still dealing with the electromagnetic pulse from the colony, were slow to respond. 3 torpedoes hit their target perfectly. The Zentari destroyer's shields collapsed at the junction points. The ship's hull broke open, venting atmosphere and crew into space. "Impossible," shouted Vexnar as he watched one of his ships crippled by the tiny human vessel. "All ships destroy that human craft." But the Defiant was already moving, using the destroyed destroyer as cover while firing again at another target. The human ship moved in ways the Zentari computers couldn't predict. Their targeting systems, designed to fight enemies who used similar technology and tactics, couldn't keep up with Powell's unorthodox maneuvers. On the ground, the situation was equally surprising for the Zentari. The landing crafts that made it through were met not by surrendering colonists but by prepared defenders. Colonists using mining equipment modified into weapons cut through Zentari armor. Others used their knowledge of the terrain to lead alien soldiers into traps. A group of Zentari soldiers approached what looked like an undefended water processing facility. As they moved closer, hidden doors opened in the ground. Colonists emerged behind them, cutting off their retreat. The facility itself transformed, panels sliding away to reveal defense turrets. "We are surrounded," the Zentari squad leader reported, before his communication was cut off. In orbit, the Defiant continued its hit-and-run attacks. 2 more Zentari ships were severely damaged. The rest were firing wildly, unable to hit the agile human vessel that struck and disappeared before they could respond effectively. Admiral Vexnar watched in growing horror as his carefully planned assault fell apart. The humans were fighting, with unexpected skill and determination. His ground forces reported fierce resistance everywhere they landed. His ships were being damaged by a single human vessel that should have been easy to destroy. "We must regroup," he finally ordered. "Recall all ground forces. We will withdraw to a safe distance and request reinforcements from the fleet." As the surviving Zentari troops frantically returned to their ships, Governor Morgan watched from the colony's command center. "They're retreating," she said with quiet satisfaction. Reeves nodded. "For now. They'll be back with more ships." "And we'll be ready," Morgan replied. "Captain Powell has proven the Zentari can be hurt. Earth will send help soon. Until then, we keep fighting." In space, the damaged Zentari fleet moved away from the planet. Admiral Vexnar prepared his report to Emperor Thraz with dread. How could he explain that a single human colony with 1 small warship had defeated his force? The Emperor would be furious. "These humans," he said quietly to himself, "they don't fight like any species we've encountered before. The Arcturians were right to warn about them." As the Zentari retreated, Captain Powell allowed himself a small smile. "Return to orbit over the colony," he ordered. "We need to prepare for their return." "Do you think we can hold out until help arrives from Earth?" asked Lieutenant Edwards. Powell's face was determined. "We have to. And when Earth learns what happened here, the Zentari will discover they haven't just attacked a colony. They've awakened the entire human race." News of the attack on Hope Colony reached Earth 3 days later. The message traveled through the emergency quantum communication network, designed for just such a crisis. In the United Earth Government building in Geneva, President Laura Wilson sat with her Security Council, watching the report from Governor Morgan. "The Zentari have retreated for now," Morgan's recorded image said. "But they will return with more ships. We need help as soon as possible." The room was silent when the message ended. Then everyone began to speak at once. President Wilson raised her hand and they fell quiet. "This changes everything," she said. "First contact with an alien species and they attack us without warning." Her eyes were hard as she looked around the table. "Admiral Harrison, what forces can we send to Proxima Centauri?" Admiral Harrison, who had been called from his lunar office, stood up. "The Second Fleet can be ready in 48 hours. 6 battleships, 12 cruisers, and supporting vessels." "Not enough," said General Eric Miller, head of Earth's Defense Forces. "If these Zentari have conquered 100 worlds as governor," Morgan reports, "they can send far more ships than we have." President Wilson nodded. "Then we need more ships and better weapons." She pressed a button on the table. "This is now a Level 1 global emergency. All nations will coordinate their responses through this council. All military forces are now under unified command." Across Earth, the response was immediate. Military bases went on high alert. Shipyards that had been building civilian vessels began converting them for military use. Scientists who had been working on theoretical weapons now had unlimited funding to make them real. In her private office an hour later, President Wilson addressed the people of Earth through a global broadcast. "Citizens of Earth and all our colonies, today we face the greatest threat in human history. An alien empire called the Zentari has attacked our colony at Proxima Centauri. They demanded surrender. Instead, our brave colonists fought back and won the first battle. She paused. But this is just the beginning. The Zentari will return in greater numbers. They believe we are weak. They believe we will be easy to conquer. Her voice became stronger. They are wrong. Throughout our history, humans have faced threats and overcome them. We have survived natural disasters, wars, and plagues. We have always adapted and grown stronger. Now we face a new test, not as separate nations, but as one human family. Around the world, people watched and listened. In homes, in offices, in public squares, billions of humans heard the news that they were not alone in the universe and that their first contact with aliens was war. I am implementing the Emergency Defense Protocol, President Wilson continued. All nations will share technology and resources. All space industries will focus on building our defenses. We did not start this war, but we will finish it. The Zentari will learn that attacking humanity was their greatest mistake. Across Earth, factories changed their production lines. Car manufacturers began building parts for spacecraft. Computer companies focused on military systems. Universities opened their research to military applications. Within days, the entire planet was on a war footing. Admiral Harrison set up his command center on the moon base. From there, he coordinated the gathering of Earth's space forces. Ships from every nation came under his command. Weapons were distributed to ensure every vessel had the best available. Training simulators ran day and night, preparing crews for battle with the alien technology. Commander Samantha Wright oversaw the deployment of a new defensive network around Earth and the inner planets. If they get past our fleets, they'll still have to deal with these, she said, showing Admiral Harrison the plans for automated defense platforms. Good work, Harrison replied. But we need to keep them away from Earth entirely. Our best chance is to engage them at Proxima Centauri and show them the cost of attacking humans. At Hope Colony, Captain Powell and the Defiant continued to patrol the system. Every day they expected the Zentari to return. The colonists worked tirelessly to strengthen their defenses. Dr. Cruz and her team developed more weapons from colony equipment. Governor Morgan kept everyone focused with her calm leadership. Earth is coming, she told them during daily briefings. We just need to hold out until they arrive. On the Zentari homeworld, Emperor Thraz was furious. He threw a ceremonial spear that narrowly missed Admiral Vexnar's head. You lost ships to a primitive colony? He roared. You retreated from creatures who have barely learned to travel between stars? Your greatness, Vexnar said, kneeling and keeping his head down. These humans are not like other species we have conquered. They fight with unusual tactics. They adapt quickly. Excuses. The Emperor paced his throne room. The Arcturians claimed these humans were dangerous. I should have had them silenced for their lies. He stopped and pointed at Vexnar. You will return to Proxima Centauri with 30 battleships. You will crush this colony completely. Then you will attack their homeworld and any other colonies. The humans will be an example to any who resist the Imperium. Yes, Your Greatness, Vexnar said, relieved to still be alive. I will not fail you again. As the Admiral left, Emperor Thraz turned to his chief scientist. Study everything we learned from the battle. Find weaknesses in their technology. The next attack must succeed. What the Zentari didn't understand was that humans were also studying them. On Earth, scientists examined the data sent back by the Defiant. They found patterns in Zentari shield technology. They discovered weaknesses in Zentari weapon systems. Most importantly, they learned that Zentari ships, while powerful, were not designed for the quick, unpredictable movements that human ships could make. In a research facility under the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Henry Anderson led a team analyzing Zentari communication signals captured during the battle. They use a predictable encryption, he told the military observers. With enough computing power, we can break into their command channels during battle. In orbit around Mars, Commander Grace Kelly supervised the testing of new weapons designed specifically to target Zentari shield weaknesses. The energy frequency is the key, she explained to her team. Their shields can't block our new torpedoes if we modulate them correctly. 2 weeks after the first attack, Earth's Second Fleet departed for Proxima Centauri. Admiral Jack Perry stood on the bridge of the flagship Freedom as the fleet entered the jump point. "This will be the most important battle in human history," he told his officers. "We're not just fighting for Hope Colony. We're fighting for the right of humanity to exist among the stars." As Earth prepared for war, the Galactic Council met again. The Arcturian delegate addressed the chamber. "We warned about the danger of attacking humans. Now the Centauri have ignored our recommendation and started a war. I fear they have awakened something they do not understand." Ambassador Lyrax of the Centauri laughed. "Your concern is noted but unnecessary. Our Emperor has dispatched a proper fleet this time. The human problem will be solved within days." The Arcturian's large eyes seemed sad. "No, Ambassador, the human problem, as you call it, is just beginning, and the Centauri may not survive what comes next." The Centauri attack fleet arrived at Proxima Centauri exactly 1 month after their first defeat. This time, 30 massive battleships appeared in the system, along with dozens of smaller vessels. Admiral Vexnar stood on the bridge of his command ship and smiled at the sight of the human colony on his screen. "No chances this time," he said to his officers. "Begin bombardment from orbit. Destroy their defenses first, then their main structures." The Centauri ships moved into position around the planet, their weapons powered up, ready to rain destruction on Hope Colony. But as they prepared to fire, sensors detected new energy signatures appearing at the edge of the system. "Admiral," called out a sensor officer. "Multiple ships entering the system. They appear to be human vessels." Vexnar frowned. "How many?" 6 large warships, 12 medium vessels, many smaller craft." The officer looked up in surprise. "They are moving very fast, Admiral. Earth's Second Fleet had arrived just in time." Admiral Perry stood on the bridge of the Freedom, looking at the tactical display showing the Centauri positions. "They're focused on the colony," he said. "They don't expect us to attack immediately. Let's use that advantage." He turned to his communications officer. "Signal the fleet. Attack pattern Delta. Target their command ships first." The human fleet accelerated toward the Centauri ships from behind. Their engines pushed to maximum power. They covered the distance in half the time the Centauri expected, and they had another advantage. They were using the new weapons designed specifically to target Centauri weaknesses. The first shots from the human fleet hit 3 Centauri battleships simultaneously. The specially modulated energy beams cut through the alien shields like they weren't there. The Centauri ships shuddered under the impact, their hulls breached in multiple places. "We're under attack," shouted a Centauri officer. "Human ships behind us." Admiral Vexnar spun around, his face showing shock as the tactical display updated. "Impossible! How did they get here so quickly? Turn the fleet! Return fire!" But the human ships were not fighting the way the Centauri expected. Instead of forming a battle line and exchanging fire in an organized manner, the Earth vessels split into smaller groups. They darted between the larger Centauri ships, firing precision shots at vulnerable points while avoiding the main Centauri weapons. On the Freedom, Admiral Perry watched the battle unfold. "Continue the attack. Remember your training. Hit and move. Don't give them clean shots at our vessels." The human tactics confused the Centauri. Their ships were designed for powerful frontal assaults and overwhelming firepower. They weren't built to track and target the smaller, faster human vessels that refused to fight in traditional patterns. In orbit around the planet, Captain Powell saw the Earth fleet arrive. He immediately powered up the Defiant and moved to join the battle. "Let's show our friends from Earth the tricks we've learned," he said to his crew. The Defiant slipped between 2 Centauri cruisers, firing precisely at the junction points where their shields were weakest. On the planet's surface, Governor Morgan watched the space battle on her screens. "Alan, power up Dr. Cruz's new jammers," she ordered. "Let's give our fleet every advantage." Reeves nodded and sent the command. Across the colony, modified terraforming equipment activated once again. This time, the pulse was even more powerful, targeted specifically at Centauri communication frequencies. The aliens suddenly found their ships unable to coordinate their actions effectively. In the confusion, the human fleet pressed their advantage. Two more Zentari battleships were critically damaged. Several smaller Zentari vessels exploded as concentrated fire from human ships overwhelmed their systems. Admiral Vexenar watched in horror as his carefully organized fleet fell into disarray. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They're just humans. Their technology should be inferior to ours." "Admiral," said his second-in-command, "they're targeting our shield junctions and communication arrays. They've studied our weaknesses." Vexenar realized the truth too late. The humans hadn't just been defending their colony during the past month. They had been learning, adapting, and preparing. Now his fleet was paying the price. "Signal the remaining ships," he ordered. "Concentrate fire on their largest vessel. We must destroy their command ship." The Zentari ships that could still follow orders turned their weapons toward the Freedom. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes streaked across space toward the human flagship. Admiral Perry saw the attack coming. "Evasive maneuvers. All ships, cover the Freedom." The human vessels moved with remarkable coordination. Smaller ships positioned themselves to block some of the Zentari fire. Others targeted the attacking Zentari ships to disrupt their aim. The Freedom itself performed a series of maneuvers that would have been impossible for the larger Zentari vessels. Some of the Zentari attacks still hit the Freedom, causing damage to its outer hull. But the human flagship remained operational, and the coordinated Zentari attack had left their own ships vulnerable. "Now," ordered Perry, "all ships target the Zentari command vessel. Use the new torpedoes." From a dozen human ships, special torpedoes launched simultaneously. They adjusted their course in flight, avoiding Zentari point defenses. When they struck the shields of Vexenar's command ship, they didn't explode immediately. Instead, they created a resonance effect that made the shields collapse completely before detonating against the hull. On his bridge, Admiral Vexenar was thrown to the floor as explosions ripped through his ship. Emergency alarms blared as systems failed throughout the vessel. "Damage report," he shouted over the noise. "Critical damage to all systems, Admiral," responded an officer, his voice shaking. "Weapons offline, engines failing, hull breaches on multiple decks." Vexenar looked at his tactical display, which showed nearly half his fleet destroyed or disabled. The human ships continued their relentless attack, seemingly untouched by the Zentari's supposedly superior firepower. "Order a retreat," he said, the words bitter in his mouth. "All ships capable of jump, return to Zentari space immediately." The surviving Zentari ships began to disengage from battle. Many were too damaged to escape and were quickly disabled by the human fleet. Others managed to activate their jump drives and disappear from the system. On the Freedom, Admiral Perry watched the Zentari retreat with grim satisfaction. "Cease fire on vessels attempting to escape," he ordered. "Disable any that remain." Within hours, the battle was over. 17 Zentari ships had been destroyed. 9 were disabled and under human control. Only 4 had escaped to carry news of the defeat back to the Empire. Admiral Perry opened a channel to Hope Colony. "Governor Morgan, this is Admiral Perry. The Zentari fleet has been defeated. Earth sends its regards." On the planet, cheers erupted from colonists watching the battle's end. Governor Morgan smiled as she responded. "Admiral Perry, Hope Colony thanks you and your fleet. Please join us on the surface. We have much to discuss about our new enemies." As human ships moved to secure the system, Admiral Perry looked at the captured Zentari vessels with interest. "Engineering teams to the disabled alien ships," he ordered. "I want to know everything about their technology as soon as possible." The Battle of Proxima Centauri was over. The humans had won decisively against a numerically superior force, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. The Zentari Empire was vast, and they would not take this defeat lightly. On Earth, when news of the victory reached President Wilson, she addressed her advisors. "We've won the first major battle, but the war has just begun. The Zentari will return with an even larger force next time." General Miller nodded in agreement. "We need to prepare not just for defense, but for taking the fight to them, President E." Wilson's eyes were determined. "Exactly. The Zentari thought they could attack us without consequences. They need to learn that humans don't just defend, we strike back. 3 months after the battle at Proxima Centauri, Earth was ready to take the war to the Centauri. The captured alien ships had provided valuable information. Human scientists learned how Centauri technology worked and found ways to improve their own ships and weapons. Engineers took apart Centauri engines and built better versions for human vessels. In orbit around Mars, a new fleet gathered. 20 battleships, 40 cruisers, and over 100 smaller vessels prepared for the largest military operation in human history. Admiral Harrison stood on the bridge of the new flagship, Vengeance, supervising final preparations. All systems. Check complete, Admiral, reported Commander Wright. The fleet is ready to depart. Harrison nodded. And our new weapons? Dr. Anderson's team has installed the shield disruptors on all major vessels. The communication jammers are even more effective than before. Good, said Harrison. The Centauri won't expect us to attack their home systems. The element of surprise will be our greatest advantage. Back on Earth, President Wilson met with Ambassador John Reed, who would travel with the fleet. His mission was not just military, but diplomatic as well. Your job is as important as Admiral Harrison's, the President told him. Find allies among the species the Centauri have conquered or threatened. Show them that humans can be better partners than Centauri masters. Reed nodded. The intelligence from the captured Centauri databases identifies several species that might help us. The Arcturians seem most promising, since they tried to warn the Centauri about us. Make contact with as many as you can, Wilson said. This war ends either when the Centauri are defeated or when they learn to respect other species and live in peace. In the Centauri throne room, Emperor Thraz was in a rage. The remains of Admiral Vexnar's escape pod lay scattered on the floor where the Emperor had destroyed it with his bare hands. The Admiral himself knelt trembling before his ruler. Twice, Thraz roared. Twice you have failed to defeat these humans. Your greatness, Vexnar pleaded. They fight unlike any species we've encountered. They adapt quickly. They target our weaknesses. You speak as if you admire them, the Emperor said dangerously. Know your greatness, but I believe we have underestimated the threat. The Arcturians were right about the humans. Emperor Thraz stopped his pacing. Perhaps, but it changes nothing. I am committing half of our Imperial fleet to crush these humans, once and for all. We will attack their homeworld directly and make an example of them. What the Emperor didn't know was that human intelligence teams had already broken into Centauri communication networks. Dr. Anderson's team on Earth intercepted the orders for the new attack fleet. Earth now knew the Centauri plans and was acting first. The human fleet departed from Mars, using jump technology reverse-engineered from captured Centauri ships. But the human engineers had improved the design, making the jumps faster and more accurate than the Centauri versions. Admiral Harrison addressed the fleet before the first jump. We are taking this fight to the enemy. Our mission is not conquest, but to show the Centauri that attacking humanity was their greatest mistake. We will strike at their military bases and shipyards, avoiding civilian targets when possible. The Centauri started this war. We will end it. The first target was a Centauri military outpost on the edge of their territory. The human fleet appeared suddenly, catching the Centauri completely by surprise. The outpost had only minimal defenses, never expecting an attack so far from human space. Captain Powell, now commanding the cruiser Liberty, led the first attack group. Target their communication arrays and defense platforms, he ordered. Disable rather than destroy where possible. The battle was short and decisive. Within an hour, the outpost surrendered. The humans took control, gathering more intelligence and capturing more Centauri technology. Most importantly, they freed members of 3 different alien species who had been forced to work for the Centauri. Ambassador Reed met with the freed aliens. We seek allies against the Centauri, he told them. Help us and we will help free your homeworlds. The aliens were cautious but impressed by how the humans had defeated their Centauri masters. One of them, a tall, thin being with purple skin, spoke for the others. I am Kraz of the Volari. Our people have been slaves of the Zentari for generations. If you truly fight to end their empire, we will help you. Over the next 2 weeks, the human fleet struck 5 more Zentari bases. Each attack was precisely planned to minimize casualties while maximizing the damage to Zentari military capabilities. And after each victory, Ambassador Reed made contact with more enslaved species, building a coalition against the Zentari Empire. News of the attacks spread through Zentari space. For the first time in living memory, the Empire was on the defensive. Emperor Thraz was forced to recall the fleet he had planned to send against Earth to defend his core systems. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Ambassador Lyrax of the Zentari demanded that other species intervene to stop the human attacks. These humans are savages, he declared. They attack without provocation and seek to destroy our civilization. The Arcturian delegate rose to respond. Without provocation, the Zentari attacked a human colony and demanded their surrender. When they refused, you attacked again with a larger fleet. Now you face the consequences of your actions. Other delegates voiced support for the Arcturian view. Many had suffered, or been threatened by Zentari expansion over the centuries. None were sad to see the Empire facing a serious challenge. 3 months into the campaign, the human fleet reached Zentari Prime, the Imperial homeworld. Admiral Harrison positioned his ships just outside weapon range of the planet's defenses. "Open a channel to the planet," he ordered. "Let's see if the Emperor is ready to talk." Emperor Thraz himself appeared on the communication screen, his blue face dark with rage. "How dare you bring your ships to our sacred homeworld? You will... I'll die for this insult." Admiral Harrison remained calm. "Emperor Thraz, I come with terms from the United Earth government. End your attacks on human worlds. Free the species you have enslaved. Join the galactic community as equals, not conquerors. If you agree to these terms, this war can end today." "Never," roared Thraz. "The Zentari bow to no one." "We don't ask you to bow," Harrison replied, "only to recognize that other species have the right to exist free from your control." "I will destroy your fleet and then your planet," Thraz threatened. Harrison sighed. "Then you leave us no choice." He nodded to Commander Wright, who activated a special communication system. Suddenly, on thousands of screens across Zentari Prime, images appeared showing the human victories against Zentari forces. More importantly, they showed the liberation of enslaved species and the growing coalition against the Empire. The message bypassed the Imperial censors, reaching ordinary Zentari citizens directly. "People of Zentari Prime," Harrison's voice announced. "Your Emperor's pride has brought you to the edge of destruction. We don't wish to harm your civilization, but we will not allow the Zentari to threaten humanity or any other peaceful species." Across the planet, Zentari citizens saw the truth their leaders had hidden. Many had never questioned their empire's expansion, believing the conquered species were primitive and grateful for Zentari rule. Now they saw the reality was very different. Within hours, protests erupted in cities across Zentari Prime. Imperial guards tried to control the crowds, but there were too many. The palace itself was surrounded by angry citizens demanding changes. In the throne room, Emperor Thraz received reports of the uprising with disbelief. "This is impossible. How dare they question me?" His ministers, sensing the changing tide, began to distance themselves. One, braver than the rest, stepped forward. "Your Greatness, perhaps we should consider the human terms. This war is destroying our empire." As Zentari society faced its first major internal crisis, Admiral Harrison waited patiently in orbit. "Now we see if they're capable of change," he told his officers, "or if they'll force us to take more drastic action." 2 days later, a new transmission came from the planet. It wasn't Emperor Thraz, but a council of Zentari ministers. "We wish to discuss terms," their leader said simply. The war that had begun with an arrogant attack on a human colony ended with the Zentari Empire's transformation. Emperor Thraz was removed from power. The enslaved species were freed. A new government formed, with representatives from all worlds, formerly under Zentari control. As Ambassador Reed signed the peace treaty with the new Zentari government, he reflected on how quickly everything had changed. "The Arcturians warned you about humans," he said to the Zentari representative. "Next time, perhaps you'll listen." The former minister nodded. "We have learned our lesson. Humans are indeed unique among the species we have encountered. We mistook your technological development for the measure of your civilization. We failed to see that your true strength lies in your adaptability, your determination, and your capacity to unite against a common threat. And to forgive," Reed added. "Don't forget that part. We could have destroyed your world, but that's not who we are. We fight when necessary, but we prefer peace." As the human fleet prepared to return home, Admiral Harrison received a message from President Wilson. "The Galactic Council has invited Earth to join as a full member," she told him. "Our first act will be to propose a mutual defense pact to prevent any species from trying to conquer another." Harrison smiled. "From defending our colony to reshaping galactic politics in 6 months. Not bad for a species the Zentari thought would be easy to conquer." The warning had been ignored. The destruction had been total, not of planets or people, but of an empire built on conquest and subjugation. In its place arose something new, a community of species working together, with humanity playing a central role. The stars would not be a battlefield, but a frontier of cooperation and discovery. And all because the Zentari had ignored the Council's warning about humans.